man, it's raining, it's cold, and you lost an hour of sleep. But you're here. Unbelievable. It always amazes me that anybody shows up, so I'm glad you're here. So I was driving down I-75 yesterday, and I was just kind of driving along, minding my own business, listening to a podcast. And then I looked to the left, and I saw a billboard. And on the billboard, there was a picture of this beautiful, beautiful child, little 8-month-old, something like that. And then, so it was like to the right. And then to the left, the billboard read, "There is evidence for God's existence." There is evidence for God's existence. And then it had like a number to call. I don't know what the number, what would you say? I guess if I were to call that number, I would say, yeah, there is. Yeah, right. There is evidence for God's existence. But man, that's just the beginning, right? Because it's not just that God exists. It's more than that. God's way more than that. As our tradition tries to tell us over and over and over again so that we don't forget, it's not just that God exists, it's that God is with us. God is in us. And God is constantly working to help us in our lives. God is with us, God is in us, and God is constantly helping to help us live our lives, work out in our lives. I kind of want to put that on a billboard, but that's a lot of words, right? So instead of putting all those words, I'd want to say, can you see God in your life? Can you see God in your life? You know, I think I can. But often I think I also need to have help from others. Other people help me to see God at work in my life. And this is what I mean. This for instance. So did I ever tell you about the time I flunked being an acolyte? I flunked acolyting. You can do that. I am living proof that you can do that. So I was 10 years old, and that was the age that you could start acolyting back when I was 10 years old. And so, went through all the training, all the stuff you're supposed to do, and then the Sunday came, time for me to be the acolyte. And I got up there, and I realized all you people were staring at me. And it freaked me out. It just totally freaked me out. So I was so consumed with thinking, they're looking at me, and so worried that you guys were evaluating me, that I messed up the offertory plate stuff, And you don't want to mess up the offertory plate stuff. But I did. So I flunked acolyte. I flunked it. I was out. They threw me out. So you can imagine what a surprise it was for me that when I was 18 and I'm thinking about, what do I want to do with my life? Being an Episcopal priest popped up into my gut. Right? It was one of those, when I was thinking about it, it was one of those deep, deep feelings that was right in my gut. Kind of a strong intuition. And I felt it really throughout my whole body, but mostly in my gut. And that feeling said, be an Episcopal priest. Now, do you think that was God, that God was in what my gut was feeling? Do you think God was in that? Thank you for playing along. I appreciate that. So I'll take your blank stare as a complete no, okay? You don't think God had one thing to do with that, not one thing. That was just a bad piece of beef or something like that, right? Well, I didn't think much. I just kept pushing it away is what I did. I just kept pushing that sense away, pushing that feeling away. But it would not stop. It just kept coming back, stronger and stronger often. So I wrote somebody I respected, and I asked his thoughts on the whole thing. I said in the letter, Dad, this is my dad. I said, every time I think about what I want to do with my life, this strong, strong feeling comes over me. I really feel it in my gut. And the feeling says, become an Episcopal priest. And I wrote, do you think I'm crazy? I mean, I flunked acolyting and everything. How could this be true? And he responded, just keep listening. God is at work in you. Just keep listening. God is at work in you. Do you see what my dad did? You see how he helped me right there? Because he could have said, yeah, you are crazy. It's got nothing to do with God. Go become a car mechanic or something like that. But he didn't do that. He helped me see that God was with me and working in me despite all the confusion I had inside of me. What a gift. What a gift. And as I reflected on what he did for me, I realized that in my life, time and time and time again, a person has popped up to remind me and help me see that God is in my life. God is helping me live my life. And when I say God, what I mean is the Spirit of God, the essence of God. Okay? And what I found is, we can do that for each other. We can help each other see that God is just not some being that's separated from us far, far away. God is an immanent presence, an immanent spiritual presence that's with us all the time. God is not just some intellectual concept that we throw out doctrines about. God is an experiential presence. And we can help each other see that, I believe. And my dad did too. And by the way, he was a priest. Just saying, okay? Okay, so I took my dad's advice and I kept listening, especially to that feeling in my gut. I kept listening to that. One day I was walking on the beach, and the beach is kind of like my happy listening place, right? That's the place where God was most alive for me, right there. So I'm walking along the beach, and the feeling was so strong. Become an Episcopal priest. It was so strong, I decided to do it. Spoiler alert, I did it, right? Okay. So I entered this process, and to become an Episcopal priest is quite a process. You have to convince a lot of people that you really have a call. And I did. And I breezed right through the process. It was easy for me. And I was like, man, this is going to be a breeze. Because, right, God's with me. Everything's going to just fall into place. It's all going to go easily. And then I went to seminary. And seminary was a wilderness for me. Kind of like the Israelites were in the wilderness of sin in that reading today. That was like seminary for me. I mean, I was definitely a stranger in a strange land. This was a weird place for me, and I felt totally out of place. I think I was expecting something like a kumbaya love fest. And it was not a kumbaya love fest. As a matter of fact, feelings were suspect in seminary. Right? Seminary for me was a rather kind of cold, sterile place where academic achievement and uber-rational thinking, that was dominant. That's the deal. in seminary. I mean, I'm all for rational thinking. We need it. We got to have it. It's a good thing. But my goodness, there's so much more to being human than just rational thought. Right? Isn't there? Please tell me yes. I mean, there is in my life. So it was hard, and I knew I was in trouble when my seminary professor assigned us this reading. And the reading comes from Principles of Christian Theology. If you ever need some help in life, don't turn to this. No, no, I'm just kidding. I'm kidding. If you're built this way, this is a great book. Okay, so he assigned us this reading, and here's how it goes. The ontological argument for God's existence is better called rational theology than natural theology. Okay, do I need to go on? All right. So he assigns that, and I'm reading it, and as I'm reading it, I'm like, oh my God, why didn't I study more in college? I have made a huge mistake. Because this was gobbledygook to me. It's like, how am I going to get through this? And then time went on, and winter, and I was in Alexandria, Virginia. Winter came. And every day of winter was about like today. It was cold, and it was wet, and it was gray. And did I mention it was cold? And I would look out the window as I was trying to read this stuff, and I would think, man, it's sunny and warm in West Palm Beach. That's where God is. Not here. Not reading this stuff. I'm like, I could be on the beach with Cindy. And I'm here reading this stuff. And so that deep, deep feeling in my gut was just not there. It was just fading away, it felt like. And my deep intuition, it wasn't talking to me. And I really thought that I'd made this huge, huge mistake. Because where is God in this wilderness? And that's when this guy named Churchill Gibson came into my life. Churchill Gibson, he became my spiritual advisor. And this guy he was kind of a goofy dude. Kind of looked like a tall Winston Churchill. And he was like a fourth or fifth generation Virginian, third or fourth generation Episcopal priest. And I never would have imagined we were going to get along. But in an environment that so often seemed to dismiss feelings and was very suspicious of personal experience, he gave me a space to process those feelings and reflect on my personal experiences. And there were no questions that were off limit. No questions. I could ask anything. And I wasn't going to be labeled a heretic. Everything was open. He was a lifeline to God for me. Right there in flesh and blood. I'll never forget one day, we're meeting. He said, you know, you don't have to be somebody else to be here. You don't have to pretend like you're a Virginia guy. He said, God called you, not anyone else. And even though this is all extremely hard for you, God is still here with you and working in you. So do what you need to do to connect with God. Right here, right where you are. See, our time together became that new place where I could experience the presence of God. And he helped me with that. You see, he helped me to see God with me right where I am, as I am. So I need your help. let's put up a billboard that says, God is with you right where you are. Amen.